Welcome to the show. I'm Jamie Eisenberg. That's Dave Richard. That's Heath Cummings. Got a fun fantasy football today for you. And we'll start with a story that we're following out in Arizona and who's going to be the quarterback for the Cardinals and who is that quarterback going to be throwing to, because Marquise Brown could be returning for the Monday night game against the 49ers. So according to Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler Murray and Colt McCoy, Murray dealing with the hamstring injury, missed last week's game. McCoy got hurt in that game with a knee injury, but was able to finish it. They're both day-to-day, so we'll get a practice report today. Remember, their first practice is on Thursday. And then Kingsbury also saying that Marquise Brown has been out with that foot injury, could potentially return. They opened the window for him to come off of IR. So let's talk about the Cardinals passing game. So which quarterback are you expecting to see Monday night, and how much would you trust that quarterback, obviously to varying degrees?
Right now, it's got to be Colt McCoy, just because he played last week, got through the game, well, most of the game last week, and now they're going to see what's going to happen this week. But hopefully it's Kyler Murray, obviously an upgrade for him. Would I trust him in fantasy? Let's put it this way. I'd rather start Aaron Rodgers on Thursday, knowing that Rodgers is going to play, but I'd wait and take the chance that Murray does play rather than start Tannehill this week.
When it comes to the receivers, if there is Marquise Brown, obviously the quarterback play will determine maybe how you like it, or maybe it doesn't matter because Colt McCoy was very good for DeAndre Hopkins and for Rondale Moore. Now Zach Ertz out for the season, so the landscape is changing a little bit. But in terms of Marquise Brown coming back, how much do you trust him? Because when he was playing, there was no Hopkins. And how much of a downgrade is it for Hopkins and Rondale Moore?
Yeah, first game back against the 49ers, I think I'd put Marquise Brown in that boom-bust wide receiver 3 or flex range. Really wouldn't want to start him. It's not going to change how I feel about DeAndre Hopkins. I did have Rondale Moore in my top 12 wide receivers this week in full PPR. I'll pull back on that a little bit. I would start Allen Lazard over him tonight just in case. And I'd put Rondale Moore in that wide receiver 19 range if Marquise Brown was back.
Could be fun to see what happens, though, if all three guys play at a high level. Again, they have to replace Zach Ertz's production. Could be Trey McBride, the rookie tight end, who profiled as a very good pass catcher coming into the NFL, but has yet to do anything because Zach Ertz has been a very capable receiver for them. So we'll see what happens. Again, we hope to get a practice report for you before the end of the show. Maybe we get Kyler Murray back out there. That would be a lot of fun to see Monday night. As good as Colt McCoy could be, we want to see Kyler Murray out there for the Cardinals. All right, talking about the injuries at the quarterback position, let's show you the injury board. And not exactly a big list, but some prominent names on there. Now, Josh Allen just resting. He is expected to be fine with the elbow injury, but was limited on Wednesday. Matthew Stafford, there's the news, practicing in full after missing last week's loss to the Cardinals with the concussion. John Wolford did not practice with neck injury, so trending in the right direction from the starter returning for the Rams. And then P.J. Walker, we know, is out. Baker Mayfield is going to start for the Panthers against the Ravens. So, Heath, Matthew Stafford, he's back, but we know he's missing his best friend and his buddy and our best friend from a fantasy perspective, no Cooper Kupp. So, what do we think about Stafford taking on the Saints? 2 quarterback league superflex leagues, because we know he's not starting in 1 quarterback leagues. Can you even trust him in those formats?
A bit of a panic moment when I realized you'd sent a text last night, said Stafford in, and I hadn't put him in my rankings. Then I went and looked at who I had at QB 23, QB 22, QB 24. I don't think I need to update my rankings. I don't think Matthew Stafford is going to be ranked much higher than John Wolford. Neither one will be in my top 24 quarterbacks.
It's really frustrating to see, because this offense, looking at it, remember how we felt about it back in August? So much potential, so much upside, and just injuries, and a lot of guys getting older and not looking the same. In the case of Stafford losing Cooper Kupp, I mean, it's terrible. That offensive line's in bad shape. I think the Saints defense bounces back in a big way against them.
Should be good to start them if you have them. If they were dropped for whatever reason, go pick them up off the waiver wire, because, again, very good situation even with Stafford back. One other quarterback note, Taylor Heineke is going to start for the Commanders once again. So good news for Terry McLaurin, no Carson Wentz, at least for 1 more week. The running back injury board, again, not a very robust list, which we like, but still some prominent names on here. So Jamal Williams dealing with an illness, did not practice on Wednesday. We hope to get him back out to practice because he's been the best Lions running back. But if he's out, good news for DeAndre Swift. Deion Jackson, now the backup for the Colts, not practicing. Mark Ingram, same thing. J.D. McKissick as well. And then you get to some of the bigger names here, bigger storylines. Ezekiel Elliott and Gus Edwards both practicing on a limited basis. Jared McKinnon is expected to play, but keep an eye on that hamstring problem. He's been a little bit banged up the last couple of weeks. Let's talk about the Cowboys, Dave. So Ezekiel Elliott might return. If he's out, we know what to do. You're playing Tony Pollard and playing with confidence. But if Zeke is back, taking on a good Vikings defense, how much will you trust either one of these guys as must-start running backs?
Because of the buys and because of just how the running back landscape is, Zeke would make my top 24 if he were playing. He's a touchdown-needy running back, but we know that he's going to fall back into getting at least 12 touches in their matchup, and he could score. He could be good for right around 11 fantasy points, whether that's PPR or non. Doesn't catch the ball that much. I do like the upside of Tony Pollard. Always have, and I think the Cowboys coaching staff has seen that he's capable of being more than just an 8 to 12 touch guy. Maybe they give him a little bit more work. He's the one I'd rather start between the two of them.
First game over 20 carries in his career last week, so hopefully he's not tired going into this Week 11 game against Minnesota. For the Ravens, you get the fun one. So Gus Edwards might return coming off their bye week. That was the expectation. But in his absence, Kenyon Drake has been pretty much a superstar. So what do we expect this week against the Panthers? Can maybe both guys in a favorable matchup where they're heavy favorites at home, can both guys have production?
If Edwards is back, I'd view both as high-end flexes. You like Gus Edwards a lot better in non-PPR than you do in full PPR. He's not going to catch any passes. But Drake would be my top option even if Edwards plays. If Edwards needs another week, he is limited coming off of a bye, then I would view Kenyon Drake as a top 20 running back this week.
Only top 20?
Top 20.
Yeah, it's a good situation, though. I mean, he's been great. And, it's kind of coincided with their offensive line getting healthy, the receiving core falling apart a little bit as well, no Rashad Bateman. So it could be a good spot for whoever takes advantage of the scenario. We would hate it to be an even split with empty production. Edwards just getting carries, no touchdowns. Drake not finding the end zone as well, maybe minimal catches. It could be a disaster across the board. But based on the scenario that they're double-digit favorites at home, hopefully both guys find a way to be productive for Baltimore this week. Let's transition now to the wide receivers. And the first list of injuries that we're looking at here, these are the guys that did not practice on Wednesday. We hope to get, again, some updates for you as well. Jamar Chase unfortunately ruled out. They are hoping to get him back. The Bengals are in Week 12 against the Titans, but he's not going to play in Week 11 against the Steelers. The Chiefs, there we go. Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdes-Scantling both did not practice. We'll show you Mecole Hardman on the next list. He was limited in practice, so we'll see if he's getting better, but we know that could be big for Kadarius Toney. We'll talk about that in a second. No Jerry Jeudy for the Broncos. No Brandon Cooks for the Texans. Josh Reynolds, Corey Davis, they've been nursing injuries for a while. One note on the Lions, the window is now open for DJ Chark to return. He's dealing with an ankle injury. He may come back and might be a difference maker for Jared Goff, for fantasy managers in deeper leagues as well, if you want to pick him up, certainly if you have an IR spot right now. 21 days until he has to be activated for Detroit. All right, let's talk about the Chiefs. Again, Mecole Hardman is limited with the abdomen illness, they're calling it, but an abdomen issue that caused him to miss last week's game. Juju suffered the concussion last week, and then Valdes-Scantling dealing with the illness. So, Dave, when you look at the Chiefs receiving core, Kadarius Toney could be absolutely amazing if everybody is out. But if we start to get one guy back, two guys back, maybe they all come back, it could be a little bit of a mess. So give me the scenario of each. Give me each scenario there. Chiefs healthy, Chiefs not healthy.
All right, let's just say that Juju's out, Hardman's out, MVS is out, Kadarius Toney in my lineups as a top 20 wide receiver because I think he's starting to earn it. We saw his playing time go up in the second game with Kansas City. The targets went up, 90 total yards and a touchdown. How do the Chiefs get away from a guy who's so elusive? Can't wait to start him. And I still can't wait to start him if one of those guys is back. I prefer it to be MVS who's back because he's a different type of receiver. The one that would worry me is Mecole Hardman. If Hardman's back, that's a guy who's taken over this role inside of 10 yards to the goal line where he's taken on a bunch of carries, a bunch of short catches, those pop passes for Patrick Mahomes. He's been great. That's a role that I think Kadarius Toney could gravitate toward. And it makes me a little bit nervous about the upside. I would downgrade him outside of my top 24 wide receivers if we knew for sure Hardman was going to play.
Right now we've got it projected with Toney and with MVS active, the other two guys out, and I've got Toney at 27, MVS at 34. If Hardman comes back, Toney would still be my favorite Chiefs wide receiver. None of them would be in the top 30. All of them would have top 20 upside.
It's just crazy to think, what they could be able to do with everybody working together. It could also be bad because now there's this significant talent that deserves some playing time. But will he sort of ruin what Juju had been building before the concussion? Will he ruin what Mecole Hardman had been doing as well? So just something to keep an eye on there. At this point, though, we're probably not going to expect Juju to play, knowing what the concussion protocol is and how it's changed since the Tua Tagovailoa injury. If you're looking at comparing some of these guys to tonight's matchup, you want to play the Packers guys, most likely Allen Lazard, Christian Watson, and potentially nobody from Titans. All right, let's go on now to the Broncos situation. So Jerry Jeudy not practicing on Wednesday, no surprise after he suffered the ankle injury there, and they're saying he's day-to-day, but probably going to be out for Week 11 against the Raiders. So Heath, what do you make of the other guys there in Denver? Courtland Sutton being the most prominent one. Kendall Hinton stepped up last week in the game against the Titans, and then you also have maybe Greg Dulcich as hopefully playing a little bit better than what we saw last week as well.
Yeah, as long as Judy's out, I'm mostly fine starting Sutton as a number 2 wide receiver, starting Dulcich as a low-end starting tight end, and I think Hinton's an interesting DFS play as long as KJ Hamler remains out as well. I wouldn't be surprised if Hinton saw 5 to 7 targets. This Raiders defense is so bad, just about anybody who's going to play 80% of the snaps could be good against them. If KJ Hamler came back, I'd like him as an interesting DFS
Yeah, he's
play.
out a few weeks though, unfortunately, so we'll see what happens there. We'll have a Russell Wilson conversation a little bit later when we get to our starts and our sits. Next list of wide receivers that we're looking at here, these guys were limited on Wednesday, but still we're keeping an eye on a few of these situations. The biggest one is in Los Angeles with the Chargers there, with Mike Williams and Keenan Allen getting in a limited practice. They've been out for several weeks, so we'll see what happens there. But you see most of the names on this list we are expecting to play, aside from maybe at this point Mecole Hardman. But again, we'll keep you up to date on those injuries as they come. So Dave, when you look at the Chargers guys, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, practicing on an individual basis, so not practicing with the team, so that's why they're limited. Again, same scenario. If they're in, how do we view them? If they're out, how much do we still like Josh Palmer and DeAndre Carter, who hopefully will play despite the ribbon?
I think Williams is his own separate entity. If he plays, he's a must-start fantasy wide receiver, and I think Justin Herbert's going to target him a ton. He's been the guy that's been missing from their mix offensively as far as downfield throws, big target in the red zone, all the above that he can do for them as a number 1 type of wide receiver. That used to be what Keenan Allen was, but then he got hurt, and then when he tried coming back, he got hurt again. I don't know if he's the same guy. I'm not sure if he's ever going to be the same guy this year. If he plays, he's at best a flex, like him a little bit better in PPR than non-PPR. If they're both out, we go running right back to Josh Palmer. We look at him as someone that can get you 15 PPR points. He didn't get the job done last week. I hope there's a chance for him to do it this week as they chase points against Kansas City.
Most likely chasing points is right, so we'll see what happens there. And then another injury that factors into it is at the tight end position with Gerald Everett, who got in the limited session on Wednesday, along with Mark Andrews practicing on a limited basis, Cole Kmet on a limited basis, David Njoku did not practice. So while we had some optimism of him returning last week, did not happen. Probably not going to play this week as well against Buffalo. Everett would be a low-end starter as well, depending on some of the injuries to Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Heath, Mark Andrews must start if he's in. If he's out, what does that mean for Isaiah Likely?
He's not a must start, but he is a top 12 tight end and probably in that Greg Dulcich range. It's probably a coin flip between those two guys who should be a top 10 tight end at that point. He was probably the most likely guy to lead the Ravens in receiving, as he has in the Ravens' last 2 games, and you like his chances of getting into the end zone.
Do we expect Likely to play in tandem with Mark Andrews? How do you think this is all going to work, because the receiving core is a little bit suspect right now?
I do think he will play. I don't think he will probably matter for fantasy purposes unless you're in a very deep tight end premium league. He could be the second option in the passing game and still not be that relevant.
He could be 3 for 50, something like that.
3 for 50 would be better than what he did last game against the Saints, but the difference was he scored a touchdown. Just was one catch for 24 yards, and it was not exactly great, but again, the touchdown saved us